Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and are you ready to talk a little bit about Fallout? Because ladies and gentlemen, history has repeated itself. Obsidian wants to make another Fallout game. The difference this time is they are now saying it when they are under the ownership of Microsoft, and Microsoft also happens to own Bethesda, the owner of the Fallout IP. What does this mean when public pressure is being put on for more Fallout content and Obsidian has a desire to make another one? Well, we're going to discuss that here today because I know fans like you and we're thirsty, man. It's like we're out in the Mojave or we're out in the Capital Wasteland without Project Purity, of course. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another old man shouting at the cloud, talking about Fallout, begging for the return of the series because we pretend that 76 doesn't exist. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're into Fallout, Bethesda, all that good stuff, consider subscribing. With that, let's begin. So I want to first give everyone a bit of a Fallout history lesson. Fallout is literally like the main building block of this channel. So I've covered pretty much every story regarding this franchise when it comes to especially a new entry in it. So let's go back to 2013. This was, again, pre-Microsoft Obsidian, pre-Microsoft Bethesda, and what Obsidian was doing was saying, here's our idea for Fallout New Vegas 2, which was actually going to be Fallout New Orleans. Then in 2017, Josh Sawyer did an interview and he said there he would certainly love to make more Fallout, that if he were given the chance, he would certainly love to make another Fallout game. Josh Sawyer being the director of Fallout New Vegas. Then let's fast forward to this year where I had Jeff Grubb here on the channel. We had a nice chat about Fallout New Vegas 2, and it wasn't one of those, hey, wouldn't that be cool? It seems like those talks are actually happening at Microsoft, and what's happening here with Obsidian may be a continuation of that. So let's go to that story, and then we'll talk about what Fergus Urquhart, CEO of Obsidian, had to say about the Fallout franchise when celebrating its 25th anniversary. So first, the Jeff Grubb story, where he says, where VGC reports, speaking on his premium Giant Bomb show Grubb Snacks, VentureBeat's Jeff Grubb claimed that the original developer Obsidian could create a sequel to the classic RPG now that it's under the same roof as license holder Bethesda. Quote, this is very early, but people have begun to have talks and say these words and sentences, and those words are Obsidian and New Vegas 2, end quote. Grubb said, quote, we're talking years and years away. There's at least an interest and conversations happening about making something like that actually a reality, end quote. He adds on, quote, a lot of people at Microsoft think that this could work and there's a lot of interest to make it happen, end quote. Now, as I said, it's Fallout's 25th anniversary and Bethesda as a whole has done largely little to celebrate it. The occasional 76 giveaway, now they're giving away Fallout 3 on the Epic Games Store. They did a small retrospective here with some of the minds behind Fallout, but all in all, it's been, in my eyes, as a hardcore fan, a pretty weak celebration where I feel like now is the perfect time to drop some actual new content that has nothing to do with 76, which is currently doing Nuka World on its PTS, and Fallout Shelter, which got some new items after being dead for a while. So I have no idea what the mindset there is, but they see the numbers, they see the metrics, we don't. We know the player bases are active there, but I'm surprised there hasn't been anything for single player Fallout fans. Now let's move on to what Fergus Urquhart had to say. So this comes from DualShockers. They had an interview with Fergus talking a bit about the future of the Fallout franchise, and he said this. When asked about whether Obsidian would welcome the opportunity to work on a new Fallout game, Urquhart responded assertively, quote, of course, if we ever got the opportunity to make another Fallout game, we'd make it. There's not even a question of whether or not we would do it. It's just, will the opportunity arise, end quote, he said. Quote, I hung around at Interplay for probably an extra year because I wanted to work on more Fallout. I love Fallout, end quote. Obsidian has released the survival game Grounded from Early Access, has a medieval tapestry-themed RPG out next month, which is Pentiment, and is also working on the Outer Worlds sequel and the closely guarded first-person RPG Avowed. The studio is extremely busy, but once the current schedule clears up, then Urquhart said it will look at what it can do next. Quote, at some point, we'll start looking into what those next games are going to be, and I would be surprised if Fallout is not on that list, end quote, he told us. Quote, if we were to do Fallout, it has to tie into what Bethesda is doing with Fallout and a lot of other things. But I would always personally say my hope is that before I ride off into the sunset, I'd love to make another Fallout game, end quote. Now, when you combine that with our Lord and Savior, Todd Howard, saying that Fallout 5 is coming after Elder Scrolls 6, we have to have another honest conversation about where this franchise lies and what its future is. First and foremost, this news is kind of funny because we just talked about Obsidian and Fallout, saying that seemingly that's not on the way. And indeed, it's not, given their current slate of games. As it was shown in the tweet celebrating Fallout's 25th anniversary, Obsidian firmly shut it down, saying, and before you ask, no. Just knowing that people are going to ask about New Vegas, they are aware of the demand. And it was in that video that I shared the energy that I still have today, which is let's respect Obsidian's initiative, because as a part of Xbox Game Studios, they are going to set the tone for what I think the rest of Xbox Game Studios can become, and we'll get a lot of amazing games that way. I love that Obsidian is still balancing out, like, hey, we're known for RPGs, we're going to do Avowed, we're going to do The Outer Worlds 2, but we're going to break up into small teams and even take one of our best directors in the studio, being Josh Sawyer, let him work on a passion project that's not really super RPG focused, and of course, let Grounded be a thing that becomes an insanely popular game, and it's fantastic. I love that Obsidian's willing to experiment, and I think we see very little of that. So Obsidian is smart to walk this line of, we will do it, we want to do it, but we are not going to do it now because we have creatives working on things they want to make, right? They went from Pillars of Eternity, and that is now going to effectively turn into Avowed. They share the same world. You're going to see a lot of similarities there, although I need to finally catch up and play Pillars of Eternity. You're going to see a lot of similarities between the two, and it's awesome to see that one creative adventure, which was an isometric RPG, now it's going to turn into this big, broad, high budget, mind you, single player first person RPG. So there is a lot to be excited about in Obsidian's future, but let's make no mistake here that one of the main reasons they want to do this when it comes to Fallout is the amount of money it would generate for everyone involved. But here is what I foresee being an upcoming issue beyond what we will get into, which is, hey, we're talking about X amount of years down the line. It's going to be a while before we see a Fallout game, which will likely take another 4 to 5 years to develop. But that first concern is one that we don't air too often. Again, typically we talk about when are we actually going to see these games, but for me, what will the identity of the franchise be by that time? Of course, right now, Fallout 76 is, as I would define it, running rampant, and by that I mean it's just tearing down the franchise rep in many ways. And then you have the Fallout TV show, and then there's this significant gap. It's like, what does it become then? What are Bethesda's plans by the time they finally get around to Fallout 5 and Elder Scrolls 6? Because rightfully so, they own the IP. They're going to have their vision, and what Obsidian makes is going to have to bounce off of it. And now we're setting up what will be an exciting time where perhaps we will see Fallouts in very close proximity that are both AAA releases and both single-player games, and that's something we haven't had since Fallout 3 in New Vegas. That Fallout-style renaissance will be something truly special if it plays out that way. So that is exciting, but at the same time, again, it goes down to series identity, which can dramatically shift. To me, it's very telling that to celebrate the anniversary, I'm not going to disregard the free games they've given out, but to celebrate the anniversary, they have provided new content for things like Fallout 76 and Shelter. They've gone to the live service stuff. What do they view the future of the franchise as? And some people may go, well, they're going to go back to basics. Just look at Starfield. But I think, do they feel co-op is the way to go? Because right now, as I've said in a number of 76 re-reviews and revisits to new content that I always keep an open mind on, is they are feasting on a very loyal player base there. It may not be big, although it is a big Game Pass game, but they are, as they being Bethesda, feasting on a player base that is in on a subscription service, battle pass, and microtransaction shop. That's a triple dip per player, and they're all loyal fiercely, and a lot of them are playing for lots of hours, throwing tons of money at this, and this is clearly based off some of the new content that I have played. I have yet to do the Nuka World and the PTS. I'll wait for the official launch, but clearly is low budget additions to the game. If the Expeditions of the Pit were anything to go off of, a very soft launch there. Clearly couldn't go as far as the team of creatives would like to have gone. To me, it says that that's their cash cow quietly. And will they have that factor into future decisions for Fallout? I feel like now's a time to right the ship, redefine, or rather go back to basics in my personal opinion, on what Fallout will be. So franchise identity is one thing that can shift, because suddenly we're going to get a lot of new people talking about Fallout, for better or for worse, when the Amazon show happens, because statistics have shown us that that will generate interest for the franchise. Then we're going to see the numbers. What Fallout game will fans go to? And more importantly, what Fallout game does Bethesda want these new fans to go to? Probably 76. If that's their first introduction to Fallout, first of all, my condolences. I am sorry to hear that. But number two is, if people do assimilate with that being what Fallout is, that will shift the identity of the game. Now, I hope that Bethesda doesn't have short-term memory and go, oh, well, you know, I mean, that was in the past, you know, forget what happened. No, I hope they remember clear as day, 76 should never have existed because you tried to attach multiplayer to an engine not built for multiplayer, and many more issues beyond that. But again, not trying to turn this into slinging mud at 76, but we have to have the honest conversation of what the brand will be. Now we'll talk about what I think everyone else wants to talk about, which is the amount of time you have to wait. We need an answer for this franchise, just like Elder Scrolls needed an answer for the next entry. And it's got to come from somewhere. Now, I will say, in Elder Scrolls' defense, I have found the wait more tolerable because of the consistent re-releases of the last game in the series, being Skyrim. And I also thought ESO, and still think ESO, kicks ass. So to me, it's easy to get a good Elder Scrolls fix. Now, I'm not going to pretend ESO is that substitute for Elder Scrolls 6, but I think ESO does a good job at emulating a traditional Elder Scrolls experience in some ways, the music, the exploration focus, that type of stuff. Whereas Fallout 76, to me, fails on every front to emulate what a traditional Fallout experience is. So I think they're completely different things. I know that's different for every other player out there, but that's why Elder Scrolls has been tolerable. But make no mistake that spin-offs, different approaches to the franchise, this is where they come in. I think of like the Gears franchise, where you got Gears Tactics in the middle of everything, and it's like, that's a cool little holdover, that's a different creative vision, that's a cool game with a new studio, but it's not Gears 6, and that's okay. I feel like we need something like that in Fallout, a tactics-based Fallout game, because make no mistake, it started off as an isometric RPG, and there was Fallout Tactics, Brotherhood of Steel. I mean, there's the beat 'em up. There were different routes to take the franchise. Would I love my traditional RPG? Of course. But you've experimented now with multiplayer. The least you can do is experiment in the single player department. My point being, though, is what everyone's saying. It's not a new novel concept. We need an answer quicker. How do you get there? I think there is one route they can take that won't be quick, but could set them up for the future with this not being an issue. I've said this in the past. I'm going to say it again. Start a new studio. Call it The Vault. Have them be your Fallout developers. Let Todd Howard, Brian Fargo, Fergus Urquhart, Tim Kaine, Leonard Boyarsky, all these Fallout minds within Microsoft, let them serve as executive producers, which overview the content, look at how they're going to handle it, break it all down, say this is right, this is wrong, what do you think? Make it collaborative on that level. Let them give the thumbs up on everything. Have them put that level of input in. Maybe one of them directs the experience if they want to shift over to this new studio, but a dedicated Fallout studio, a dedicated Elder Scrolls studio, like this type of stuff, I think is what Microsoft needs to look at now as they start to own a slew of new IP, specifically Fallout being, no doubt, the biggest cash cow within all of Bethesda as far as I'm concerned. We can talk about Elder Scrolls being right there next to it, and certainly with the way they've continued to re-release Skyrim and people continue to buy it, Skyrim is a big cash cow, but I think with Fallout and Fallout Shelter in particular, pushes that past what Elder Scrolls has made. But I could be wrong. I don't have the stats directly in front of me. Still, I think that Fallout has a lot of brand relevance for a game that had a tragic launch in its latest entry, and I think that says something about the strength of the overall IP. That's where you do hand the IP off to another studio, and we get a game by like 2025 that is more of a spin-off nature. I just think we need an answer that isn't likely a decade off. I am very excited that Obsidian wants to make another Fallout game. I am extremely excited that Bethesda wants to make Fallout after finally Elder Scrolls fans get their due. I don't think it's fair, though, for Elder Scrolls fans to have waited as long as they had to for ES6, and I certainly don't think it's fair that Fallout fans had to wait this long. And this goes down to IP control, in my opinion. Now, I get it, you want to protect your baby, but Fallout was not Bethesda's baby. There are a lot of brains in the operation of overall Microsoft that helped conceptualize Fallout and make it what it is today, no doubt about it. But that was not theirs in the first place, so I don't know what the protection of it is, especially when Bethesda, as much as I love them, and Fallout 3 is one of my favorite games of all time, it's my top 3, they've done the most damage to the Fallout franchise, so who are you protecting it from, is what I always end up asking. Like, why are we being so defensive of an IP, and now we're going to turn it into a show? I don't want to get grim and depressing about it, but for me, I just feel the protection is to a negative, and that we need to loosen up the control, because fans got to eat, and it's a problem across the industry. I look at Rockstar as another one with GTA, Red Dead, Bully. Some people calling for another Manhunt. Of course, From Software is about to run into that wall. Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Elden Ring. What do you do? It's just Sekiro, by the way. There's so many great IP, and I love the creative flexes that these teams have been doing, but you need to find answers for fans that are interested in one particular product, because it's not just a small number. We're talking millions of people. So those are my thoughts on what's happening with, of course, Obsidian, Fallout, and all that good stuff. I'm sure a lot of you are not surprised by my takes at all. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I leave it in your hands. What do you think about what's going on with Fallout, Obsidian, the future, and all that good stuff? Let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.